right behind Cosmo is the pride of the Valley Band from Valley High School in Colorado, representing Gilchrist, Blackmore, and LaSalle in Colorado. These young people came over from Colorado to march in the Kamehameha Day Parade.
Darrell Raines has directed the Valley High Band in Gilchrist since 1964.
Now, back in its heyday, back in the day, the band won virtually every competition it entered.
I can tell you what they call the pride of the Valley because they got a lot to be proud about.
Did you ever see Mr. Holland's opus? We believe we are Mr. Raines' opus.
There was something magical about the Pride of the Valley Marching Band that kept that alumni band going for years and years and years, and I think the longevity speaks for itself.
This story is about rhythm, structure,
line up, 6 across,
and style.
yeah.
It's a fable of sorts about a magical time, an extraordinary place, and a remarkable man who taught a school system and a community how to stand out, step up, and get down.
So let's just start off with the concert B-flat major scale with 8th notes.
In July 2004, more than 100 Valley High School alumni assembled to put the finishing touches on a Colorado legend. The Pride of the Valley Alumni Band was prepping for the Independence Day Parade in Greeley, where members had been marching every several years since 1983.
And this is probably our last year. I wouldn't have missed this for anything. If I had to be in a wheelchair, I'd be here. I'm not the oldest. There are two older than me. But I'm a 56-year-old grandmother and still playing the bass drum. That's pretty silly.
It's Old Home Week. It's a chance to get back with your old partners and play in the band. Band meant a lot to us when we were growing up.
But it is funny going to practice because you're that little kid again in a way, but yet you're not.
I have to learn how to play every time all over again, and it comes back quick, but you have to start all over, and it's kind of funny.
For some, this would be a final return to the glory days when their high school band dominated Colorado's summer parade circuit. And since the alumni band continued even after Valley's summer band program ended, a handful of alumni came despite never marching the summer circuit in high school. It was the first alumni band appearance for some, while others had never missed a practice or parade. All were here to refresh their connections to a legend that had a dramatic impact on their youth.
Growing up on the farm and having a dairy, we just never traveled much, and with the band we traveled all over the state of Colorado, marching in parades, traveled several places out of state.
As was the case with many band alumni, trombone player Harvey Ewing grew up in band. After graduation, Ewing stayed home to run the family farm.
All right, we have 2 days to figure out how far we're going to get in this book.
Drummer Steve Miller moved on to teaching high school in Fort Collins. Like Ewing, he grew up in the band and kept his passion alive long after high school was finished.
I stuck with band, and that's where I learned focus, dedication, and being responsible to a bigger cause than it wasn't all about me. It was about us. It was about that team, and it was a large team. We had that band room filled with people.
I lived in the band room. I took band and TA for band, and during study hall I'd go to the band room, and it was just a place to be. And obviously I've never left because here I am.
As a band director in Brush, Colorado, Darlene Miner made a career out of music and regularly joined several other family members in the alumni band.
I was really excited to do it. And once I got to the first I went to the first practice, I just felt like I was young again.
This would be the first alumni performance for Elizabeth Garcia. Her family didn't play in the band, but that never stopped her mom from keeping pace.
In middle school and high school, as we would be marching down the street during the 4th of July parade, my mom would run to every corner and make sure that I saw her and wave to me.
As a 1993 graduate, Garcia was one of the youngsters. 93 classmate Dorian Christian marched with the alumni band several times after graduation, but because his dad was one of the oldest members, Christian actually started with the alumni band as a grade schooler.
I even got to, kind of be involved a little bit and carry the banner in one of the parades. I remember that my cousin Tina and I, we were, carrying the banner down the street in front of the band, and it was a neat thing for our family to be involved with.
Christian's family tradition got started in 1964 when Don Christian was in high school. Now a barber in Greeley, the elder Christian marched again and again to reconnect with his saxophone and with parade-induced euphoria.
There's just a pride there. And again, to hear the crowd at the alumni band, it was even more so. But to hear the crowd and see a response to something that you do, it just really feels good.
For Christian and the others, the alumni band had become a regular part of life. And it always took them to 10th Avenue in Greeley, where the high school band found its greatest success. Trombone player Stan Odenbaugh missed only one alumni practice in 20 years.
Well, it was the parade. It was always important, and there was a tradition of winning, and no one was going to beat us here. And it took a long time before someone did that, and that's because we all had a lot of pride.
What we had was the glue that held us, the country bumpkins, together, that we could go out there and we could show them. We could show them how to play. We can show them how to make precise movements.
You think there was probably 10, 12-year period there that before us competing that they went undefeated, and every parade I think I had that feeling that we did not want to be the band that lost. And I think I was so glad when we graduated and we were still undefeated, that pressure wasn't on us to be the first class to lose a marching competition.
With the winning spirit alive and well, each return practice brought these Valley High School alumni closer to the enchantment they knew would come from a simple count and a familiar command, a spell of sorts created by the same magician and the same magical wand that began transforming small-town teenagers into big-time performers way back when.
1, 2, ready, play.
Coming up now, the Valley High School Pride of the Valley Marching Band from Gilchrist, Colorado. Of course, this is the 1970 St. Patrick's Day Honor Band, because it won the Best Marching Band honors in last year's parade.
From the early 1960s to the 1990s, the Pride of the Valley Marching Band won nearly every competition it entered. For 13 years during the 60s and 70s, the group never lost in competition with other Colorado bands. In concert competition, the same bands consistently earned the highest rankings. And in concert at home, the bands drew standing-only crowds. It was indeed a magical time, starting in 1964 when Darrell Raines arrived. Many years later, Raines would be compared to the main character in the film Mr. Holland's Opus. Holland was a band director whose graduates honored him by returning to play one of his compositions. Ironically, the 1995 movie came well after the Valley Alumni Band first returned in 1983 to honor Raines. Raines himself doesn't mind the comparison, but thinks it deserves some clarification.
Well, I didn't think his band was as good as ours, but he did a great job.
As a high school student in the small town of Manzanola, Colorado, Raines played the clarinet and football. But when he moved on to Colorado State College, now the University of Northern Colorado, in Greeley, music won out.
I always enjoyed band in high school, and it along with athletics, and I finally figured out that I wasn't big enough to play college football. I decided to go into music.
After college, Raines played in the U.S. Army Band, then got a job as band director in Ordway, Colorado. It didn't take long to discover the value of parade competition.
Well, I've quickly figured out that more people see you out either on the football field or on the street than usually at your concerts. So if you can build up a following that way, then eventually they start coming to the concerts.
The band rapidly found success, and Raines found his wife Angie in Ordway as well. As an elementary school teacher, Angie would become a major force behind the scenes, encouraging and enabling Raines' passion. The couple's next stop was Cordell, Oklahoma, where Raines once again took his band to the streets, and first place was usually the result. Meanwhile, Raines' high school football coach had become superintendent in Weld County's RE1 school district and talked Raines into taking over the district's band program.
Mr. Raines came, and I think we fell in love with him from day one. He was tough, and he made us practice. Yeah, we had to sign those practice cards all the time to prove that we had to practice, and our moms and dads had to sign them and stuff, and it was kind of, but that was, you know, the beginning.
Debbie Miller and Ann Dingman had just started band as grade schoolers in 1964. Raines' arrival meant that they and other band members would work much harder than they had before, and most of them liked that, at least in part because the music choices, like the somewhat risque Stripper, weren't typical for high schools at the time.
He got our interest because he let us play contemporary music. We got to play music, you know, that we heard on the radio or in the movies. It wasn't all this classical type stuff. And I can remember taking piano lessons, how I hated them because we played classical music, and I said, why can't we play something, you know, that is familiar to us? And Mr. Raines let us do that.
And, you know, of course, like the Stripper, that was something that maybe a high school band maybe should not have been playing, but it really worked out just, you know, really well with our band.
The popular music and high expectations helped Raines build a solid program. Being in charge of all bands in 3 grade schools, 2 middle schools, and a high school ensured that he personally would influence each and every band member in the program, beginning as early as 4th grade. The RE1 district was a blend of 3 separate farming communities in the shadow of Longs Peak. Platteville, Gilchrist, and LaSalle were forced into a single district in the early 1960s. The sometimes bitter consolidation was ordered by the state of Colorado. Raines arrived in the middle of it all. Even today, district leaders recognize the magic behind that move.
We were 3 communities that had been thrown together, 3 different high schools, and now he put together a group of kids from all 3 communities and made them one band and bring families together from Platteville, Gilchrist, and LaSalle that normally used to be rivals in the 50s. And I think Mr. Raines had a lot to do with that, being able to bring the community together to do that and get the buy-in from folks that normally wouldn't have sat across the table from each other.
I don't know whether you might say it was in chaos, but there was so much fighting between the 3 towns. I think it was my second year here. We entered in 4 parades and we won 4 parades. And that just kicked it off. And the public got behind the band, and then they finally got behind the school district. But I think winning just really helped everybody have something that they could relate to.
Success breeds success. We had that one great summer when I was in 7th grade, my first grade in that band, first year in the marching band. We went to 4 parades and brought home 4 first place trophies. From there, it was a snowball. It just ran with itself.
Randy Matsushima played the clarinet and later became drum major, helping to lead the band to win after win in parade competition. And true to Raines' theory, the concert band started packing in the crowds, while regularly earning superior scores in competition.
We were blessed to be in the right place at the right time. Things just absolutely ballooned for us, and that's when we gained the most in the way of visibility. And that was because we just happened to be there. I mean, Mr. Raines would have made that happen with whomever he had during that period of time, but we were there, and so we got to reap all of the glory, I guess, if you will.
I think it was just the fact that we finally got to where we could pull together and develop pride in what we did, and we just kept pounding that and pounding it until, I don't know, it just became a movement. And they felt it within themselves, and they wanted to be the best, and they ended up doing that.
The marching band was popular and successful, but it was labor-intensive. Practice during the school year sometimes meant early mornings in the snow, while summer sessions were held in the evening after many students already put in a full day's work.
We knew what was expected as far as a work ethic. We worked all day on the farm, and then we would go march in the dirt roads and Gilchrist all night.
Within just a few years, about 1/4 of all students in the district were band members, so many people in the area were connected. The stage was set for a remarkable community movement that was orchestrated in part by Denver newspapers and by Channel 9 News in Denver, which first covered the band under the call letters KBTV and continued coverage as KUSA-TV 34 years later.
Members of the Pride of the Valley Alumni Marching Band got out their instruments tonight to practice for tomorrow's big parade in Greeley. They will be led for the last time ever by director Dale Raines.
Let's go!
Find a bone, guy to it. All right, now the first piece we're going to work on is old-time rock and roll, so get that one up.
Go, Valley, go!
When band alumni arrived for their last practice, KUSA would be there as well, helping to apply finishing touches to a story that first captured many of these alumni when they were teenagers.
Raines runs a highly disciplined organization. He heads one of the state's top marching bands, and he's proud of it.
I had known about the band. I'd known the band because I always went to a lot of parades, and so I had seen the band many times, and it was one of those things where never did it dawn on me that I was ever going to have an opportunity to actually do a film or a film documentary on this great band.
This evening's rehearsal, with its cloud of dust, excited youngsters and dogs trailing behind, is sort of extra special for the group. It's one of the last practice sessions before a scheduled television appearance and 2 parades, one of which will take them out of the continental boundaries of the United States. As we watch them march along Gilchrist's dusty streets, we can almost feel their excitement. The Pride of the Valley, the first Colorado high school band to perform outside the continent. An invitation to perform on Kamehameha Day 1970 from Hawaii Governor John Burns has made it the most envied high school band in the state, and probably the hardest working.
Along with the good fortune of scoring a trip to Hawaii, the band would earn a good deal of fame. It was the first time a Colorado band had traveled outside the continental United States, and then Governor John Love named the band Colorado's musical ambassador. Extensive media coverage followed. The Denver Post assigned reporter Bart Nyberg and photographer George Crowder to develop a story for the paper's Empire magazine, and KBTV asked Stuart Jacoby to tell the band's story from start to finish.
The tiny community of Gilchrist can be found in Colorado's lush St. Vrain Valley. Gilchrist and its neighboring communities of Platteville and LaSalle have one common claim to fame: the most enthusiastically cadenced musical aggregation the valley could muster. There goes Gilchrist Solitude, and here comes the Pride of the Valley Marching Band.
think the thing that stands out in my memory and has always stood out in my memory all these years is standing out on that dusty rural farm road in the middle of cornfields and other crops in what might be considered a classic pastoral country setting, and then all of a sudden here comes this marching band seeming to emerge out of the cornfields, coming down the road and marching into that rural community, and what I think has always been in my memory as a very classic slice of rural Americana. This is your community-owned station, South Texas Public Radio, KEDT-FM 90.3.
Today, Jacoby is Director of Radio Programming for the South Texas Public Broadcasting System in Corpus Christi. He remembers the story as one of the high points in his career.
The way they marched, their little dance routines and everything made them extremely unique. And people who went to a lot of parades, as I did, when everybody knew the Pride of the Valley Marching Band was coming, and you could first see that sign down the road, then the cheers along the parade route would start, because people knew that they were about to see something very, very special indeed.
In addition to playing quality music, Rain's bands got the attention of crowds and judges with routines that kept band members spinning, dipping, dancing, and marching backward to the beat of whatever song was on tap.
Well, the routines were all in my head, and it just depended on what music I could hear that I thought that we could put the routine together to cause crowd reaction. And then the idea of marching backwards, I don't know where I came up with that, but that was our thing.
I do remember a little bit about that, where he would try to see where the melody was to see how the routine would fit in. He would write on the music, and he would actually try it himself. He would either go out in the backyard or down the basement and kind of do the routine before we got it.
The summer parade routines were complemented by elaborate halftime shows during football season.
He always had a good field band in football. I remember his yellow notebook pad in the house with X's on it all the time with what they were going to do for the halftime show at football.
Rain's two sons, Steve and Kevin, always got the first look at new routines, and from a very early age wore their own uniforms and sometimes marched with the band.
We didn't really know what it was all about, but we knew it was a parade, and so Mom would get us in our cowboy outfits that was exact duplicates of what the band was wearing, and we'd go out, line the parade with her and watch everyone go by and pretend that we were in the band as well.
The two eventually did become band members, but not in time to participate in the first Hawaii parade. Still, they were right in the middle of the excitement, as were many Colorado TV viewers who got to catch the trip on Channel 9 News.
After the dreaming, the planning, and long hours of practice, the Pride of the Valley Band from LaSalle, Platteville, and Gilcrest, Colorado was on its way. The 132 high school bandmen were going to Hawaii to play in the Kamehameha Day Parade at the invitation of Hawaii Governor John Burns. Follow their exciting tour in this week's 10 p.m. Channel 9 News.
Jacoby would eventually follow the band to Hawaii, while Nyberg took a liking to the band because it reminded him of his small-town roots in Nebraska.
We loved it when this band would be competing against some of the much larger schools and running off with all the awards. It just pleases everybody's heart who's ever lived in a small town.
Nyberg's 4-page story in Empire magazine inspired a cover photo of the band's majorettes and made a significant impression on management at the Post. Nyberg's story, along with Jacoby's coverage, and coverage in other media focused on the musical dedication, the community participation, and the fundraising fervor that spread across the district.
All the fundraisers, the chili suppers, the Mexican suppers, selling Halloween candy. It was It was just, yeah, it was just amazing the things we did to raise money to travel and compete all over the state and out of state.
One of the biggest and hardest things that we did was going up and cutting Christmas trees and then coming down and setting up lots. And then one year we got smarter. We bought a whole boxcar full of Christmas trees already cut from Minnesota, and we all went down to Platteville where they unloaded them all into farm trucks and set up the lots that way. But that was one of the hardest things. And then we started cutting firewood and putting it in cords and selling that, and of course the chili suppers and all the things just more or less pulled everybody together, and everybody worked hard.
I would like to say that I learned about finance, about fiscal responsibility. What I saw during that period of time was community. What I saw were, almost regardless of what we took up, people were there. They said, this is the Pride of the Valley Band, trying to earn money. Whatever it is you're selling, I'll buy it. And it wasn't just in RE1. It was, you go to Kersey, you go to Fort Lupton, you'd go to Johnstown, and we had support in all of those places.
With fundraising activities reaching across the county, band members put their farm community work ethic to good use, learning business skills along the way. The successful campaign would be the first of many during the next several decades. In this case, the more than $30,000 raised meant that all expenses except airfare would be covered. The band, with many parents serving as chaperones, chartered 2 jets, and for most it would be the first chance to fly.
Each plane held 130 people, and we filled one plane with band students and one plane with parents and followers. And we were the first non-stop flight from Denver to Honolulu from the old Stapleton Airport, and in lots of ways that was kind of scary.
First time half of us, or I think more than half, had even been on an airplane. That morning was great, getting down to the airport, putting all the instruments in farm trucks.
It was really interesting to me to see these young people going over to a place that they had never been before, and back in that era might have only dreamed about or read about.
At the airport, airline officials rushed them through the terminal building to the gate. Since transfer arrangements have been made in advance, they will not see their luggage or instruments until they reach Honolulu. This will be the first plane ride for many of the adults as well as the teenagers. It will also be the first time that many will see the ocean.
There might have been a little bit of apprehension before we boarded the flight, but once the plane took off and we knew that we were on our way to Hawaii, why then there was just this sudden burst of energy on the plane, and I will always remember that sudden burst of energy from these great young people on that plane.
In Hawaii, local newspaper coverage announced the band's arrival, and Hawaii Governor John Burns made the welcome official. Soon it was time to march in the televised King Kamehameha parade.
And right behind Cozo is the Pride of the Valley Band from Valley High School in Colorado, representing Gilchrist, Platteville, and LaSalle in Colorado. These young people came over from Colorado to march in the Kamehameha Day Parade. They sure girls.
The girls were wearing silver and black, very stunning costumes.
Valley High School in Gilcrest, where about 1/3 of the school's more than 400 students are band members, can be proud of this moment. A Honolulu newspaper the following morning, in a front-page article, will term Colorado's Pride of the Valley Band, quote, probably the best unit in the parade. A parade, by the way, which lasted nearly 3 hours. How did the band react to the warm response of the people? Band director Darrell Raines.
Well, it was one of the most outstanding receptions we've ever had as far as the parade goes, and I think with the humidity, the kids were tired, and they expressed themselves afterwards, and that's what kept them going, was the tremendous response from the people on the parade line.
The group got rave reviews, but finished second to a local band. It was a bit of a shock to some, but the thrill of a Hawaiian vacation erased the disappointment.
Sea Life Park. Here, the Pride of the Valley Band members join other tourists in an afternoon with trained porpoises and a killer whale.
Here we go. Same place. 1, 2, ready, play.
Years later, the memories of that first trip to Hawaii were still vivid for many older members of the alumni band. And most other alumni had memories of their own band trips, which became commonplace in the 70s and 80s. In fact, some of these alumni did win in Hawaii during subsequent visits, when the band became somewhat well known in Honolulu.
We count on the mainland bands being in the parade to give us some music, and you always expect to see a band. You know, the marching and the playing of the band, and we expect it now. But back in the 70s, it was very unusual to have a band come from the mainland. And gosh, Valley does stand out because they were a huge band, too.
Keahi Allen was director of the King Kamehameha Parade for some 30 years and remembers the band as impressive and original.
Well, I think it was the cowboy hats that they used. Not too many bands come down with cowboy hats. And they were black and white uniforms, and they were quite a spiffy band.
The band's uniforms were popular with crowds and easy to maintain. Scuffs weren't tolerated on the white tennis shoes, so polish could be found in many pockets. The black vinyl vests were like electric blankets in hot weather, but they were indestructible and carried the band's legacy from year to year.
They'd check the vest out, and you'd open it up, and you'd try them on, see which size fits, and you'd actually pick one, and you'd open it up, and there would be 7 or 8 names inside the vest of people that had wore it the previous years. And it was always like handing down the torch of all these pretty cool people.
The group eventually discarded the vests, but the cravings and expectations for victory stuck.
I don't know if you'd say, well, that was the most important thing. It was just almost expected. It was that tradition, and it just happened because everybody put that time in. That was so crucial.
It always gave us such a thrill when we would hear comments, alleged, we don't know if they're actually true a lot of times, but where larger high school bands from the city would complain about being beaten by a bunch of country bumpkins. And that all made us feel very good because we knew we had something special going.
As time went on, we weren't viewed as country bumpkins. We were viewed as somebody to emulate. Those big schools took after us, and they knew that we had first place in a lot of parades. And there were some directors, I'm sure, that took that to heart and said, we got to beat those guys out there at Gilcrest. And and they had a hard time.
When you were a part of the Pride of the Valley High School band, you knew you were something special. You know, we'd play in the Greeley Independent Stampede, and we'd play elsewhere, and you knew you were better. I mean, you could just watch the other schools. You were better.
We always wanted to win first, and when you step out onto the street was a very exciting feeling for all of us. You step out, you've practiced hard, you've worked hard, you've gone around the block in Gilchrist 50,000 times, and you're ready to go.
The band was successful year after year. But the band's streak of victories in Greeley did come to an end after 13 straight wins, although with some controversy over an unexpected change in judging standards. 1 year later, though, the band was back on top. With the growing school district, Raines eventually focused on teaching the district's younger students. But he stayed connected to the marching band and managed the district's music programs, while new high school directors arrived to keep the tradition going.
Winning, while it's not everything, it's almost, it is almost that, you know, I mean, especially when you're in a winning program. You know, I don't care if it's sports or music. You know, if you're used to having that level of accomplishment, you know, second place doesn't come easily.
Tom Peterson now directs bands at Highland High School in Alt, Colorado. He taught at Valley from 1979 to 84.
And as the director, I came in with, you know, with a feeling that, you know, it was my job to try to maintain that level of excellence that Darrell and the previous directors had built. And it was a tremendous amount of responsibility, but it also was a lot of pride to be involved with an organization like that. And I think back about it, it's one of the highlights of my music career.
Peterson's stay at Valley included a trip for the band to Florida and Walt Disney World. When he left, Gary Bruner stepped in to keep the band's competitive spirit alive.
More often than not, we got superior ratings in concert band, marching band, jazz band, all the way through. And we're in state marching band finals almost every year. So it gave kids that either rural kids or town kids, gave them a great opportunity to be in something that it really was kind of the glue, in my opinion, that held that community together.
The one dependable thing about the Stampede Parade for the 25 or 30 years that I was broadcasting it were the Valley Band. As I have watched small towns around, the difference between the ones that appear to be more successful or a better place to live is some kind of a uniting force. Sometimes it's the athletic teams. In this case, it was the bands. And it was just an absolute delight to watch them this past.
Well, upcoming next, you talk about traditions in marching bands and in high schools. Here they are, the Pride of the Valley marching band from down in the LaSalle, Gilchrist, and Platteville area. They've just returned from Florida, where they performed at Busch Gardens and Universal Studios.
Conflicts with jobs and sports made it increasingly difficult to field a large marching band. But with summer trips as an incentive, bands kept at it even after Raines retired from the school district in 1989.
Let's watch and listen to the Pride of the Valley. Count on the Valley High School band being here, as their tradition has has worn well over a long period of time.
Boy, it sure has. And this looks familiar to me.
Hey, Valley Vikings.
Pride of the Valley.
Why is it they look younger every year?
I don't understand
it couldn't
that.
Be us, could it?
Even the alumni band, which is probably...
Competing summer activities eventually took their toll, and the high school marching bands lost their power.
Here's the Pride of the Valley alumni marching band.
Despite the fact that the high school band eventually quit the summer marching program, some graduates continued to join the alumni band.
Over 100 plus ex-alumni from Valley High School and their Pride of the Valley,
which gained strength through the 1990s. In fact, by the time Dorian Christian was a high school student in the early 1990s, Don Christian and the Alumni Band had been in action for 10 years.
Alumni from all years at Valley High School. Let's see what kind of a grade they get.
Now we're back another time singing to our diddy-diddy-dum-diddy-doo.
The Alumni Band's first return came in 1983. Former band members organized the comeback, but Raines once again took charge.
I remember the first band practice we showed up to, he said, this is the music we're going to play. And then he announced we were going to march. We thought we were going to be able to ride on the back of a truck, but he won't allow that. And so then okay, we're going to march. So we marched a little bit, and then after a couple nights, he said, now here's the dance step we're going to do. You know, I think it brought us a little closer, and we quit thinking about age.
Without age requirements or limitations, the Alumni Band was open to each new graduating class, with new recruits joining the band on a regular basis. And when the Alumni Band returned every few years, it was common to find both that band and the Valley High School Band marching in the same parade.
The Valley Alumni Band, and we talk about the tradition that has been imposed on the local area, not only in the parade, but of course during the tenure of Valley High School, and that is the accomplishments and the awards and the honors and the travels of the Valley bands. But this is the Alumni Band from Valley, and the alumni truly graded number is evidenced here. That's not anywhere close to all of it, but this is all of them that could make it. But it's just a tremendous organization.
That's the biggest band in the parade this year, and maybe in several years.
With staying power lasting more than 20 years, the Alumni Band always got plenty of attention.
They really became a crowd favorite, I know, in the parade itself.
As a reporter and editor with the Greeley Tribune for more than 30 years, Randy Bangert believes the band became a source of pride for Greeley as well as Platteville, Gilchrist, and LaSalle.
Certainly the communities that school represents, LaSalle, Gilchrist, and Platteville, it's even a bigger source of pride for those communities. But it has spread. I think they're a source of pride for the entire county.
While Bangert became somewhat accustomed to the story, Denver Post Bureau reporter Coleman Cornelius first discovered the band in 1999. And though unfamiliar with the band's storied past, Cornelius quickly discovered why the band kept at it.
It soon became clear to me that the real story was really one of an enduring sense of community that the band found in coming together again every year. Community is where we often are re-centered, reinvigorated. We often derive a sense of purpose from community, defined broadly. And of course, for the Pride of the Valley Alumni Band, the leader of this community is Darryl Raines.
From Valley High School in Gilchrist, LaSalle, and Platteville, the Alumni Band, the Pride of the Valley, and this is just unbelievable that they continue to have an alumni band.
Yeah. In 1999, Raines and the Alumni Band had the honor of leading the parade.
And I'm sure that many of these alums were a part of that group that won first place year after year in the bands category here at the Stampede Parade.
And they love to get together every 4th of July. Look at the T-shirts that they've got.
Oh, that's terrific.
It's one way that these band members stay together, stay in contact with one another, is the parade every 4th of July. And they're very
Valley Alumni Band. They're back home for the holiday. All 120 members are graduates of Valley High School.
The band did march in 2002, but because Raines wasn't able, alumni couldn't accept it as the last appearance. It was one more testament to the lessons and tradition that many believe played a major role in shaping their lives.
I think what I learned mostly from band is, being able to take pride that your hard work paid off, and you could be proud of it.
You just carry yourself proud through the rest of your life, and I think the perfectionist part of it, sometimes I'm doing things on the farm and I think back to Mr. Raines of trying to be so perfect, do it right.
It was always positive. I would say that not only did Mr. Ains expect excellence, he expected perfection.
Well, he always wanted it to be perfect, but I don't think we were ever perfect, but we strived to be perfect. Discipline.
You know, the one thing that I think that a lot of us, and maybe all of us, learned from Mr. Raines is that each of us has our own unique ability to contribute. But he also taught us how to bring that forth in the people who are alongside us.
Well, you can get involved in sports and you can go to every practice. But if for whatever reason the coach decides you're not going to play, you're not going to play. In band, if you go out there and practice, you might be second, third, fourth chair, or something like that, but you're going to play. So to me, it's more, it teaches better teamwork than actually sports do.
What Darryl brought us and what we were able to learn and accomplish and the kind of people we became because of his influence, we carried on and through playing in old folks' homes or raising our kids and just in our whole overall life. It was one of the best experiences anybody can have when you're in high school.
2 years after Raines couldn't march, he was back in good health, and band members talked him into one more appearance. The band started small in early practices, but grew as the parade date got closer.
Is this a band or what?
By parade day, more than 100 alums were on hand.
Class of 74!
Graduates represented many of the 40 years since Raines' first year in 1964.
What year was it you graduated? 1969. 69. This is going to be hard to quit.
This is Jared and Jacob Chacon. Their dad Tim and I marched in the 70s. And when the boys were little, they used to roller skate alongside the alumni band when they were little boys. And now they're marching with us.
I graduated in 95. I'm the only one from my class. There's a couple of people like a year above me, a couple behind me, but yeah.
Many alumni were in their 40s, 50s, and even 60s.
Do you look exactly the same?
And those who seemed to look the same might have benefited from the same deteriorating eyesight that made special accommodations necessary for reading music.
My bifocals don't let me see. I need it further away, so
I bet that was fun.
The duct tape worked the best.
There were aging eyes, stiff backs, and instruments that had seen better days.
Yeah, it probably was when we were resting during one of the parades, and you lean on it, and that's what happens, it crinkles.
Unlike their competitive days, alumni could now get away with crinkled horns and duct tape. And though some remembered their white shoe polish, it was no longer necessary. There was time for pictures and greetings.
Don't anybody else play now. Darlene, I want you to tune the trumpets to B flat.
And tune-ups. And there was time to take note of how much time had passed for this band with the roll call of members who could no longer play.
Once again, we dedicate our presence in the parade to our former band members who have passed away. Lowell Labott, Sandy Arnold Miller, Dave Chacon, Sylvia Chacon Gardner, Wayne Craven, Russ Farner, David Hildenbrandt, Jim Jorgensen, Billy Joe Smith Raines, Steve Luft, Colleen Mater, Willie Nava, Connie Odenball, Russell Richmond, Pam Wheaton, Shelley Thompson Wadsworth, Jimmy Merrick. Now we lift up our pride and spirit to the heavens. 1, 2, 3. Go, Valley, go!
With preparations complete, the band was ready to stand out, step up, and get down one last time. One last tribute to tradition, teamwork, and the man with the magic wand.
wonderful to come and listen to and see all the people that have grown up around in this community and still come and play in the band and show their patriotism for the 4th.
Today is the final appearance of the Valley Marching Band Alumni Band as the marching unit. One from the class of 2004 and one from the class of 88. A true family tradition. Time to the Valley Alumni Band.
In the end, Raines, the director, was still working his magic.
It's going to be something to remember.
And many band members were having a tough time letting go.
This is probably the end of, I don't know, a feeling we'll never have again. It's all about Mr. Raines. It's about pride. It's about wanting to be the best.
He gave us that work ethic and pride that you've got to take into your job. And that has, I think, we'll carry that forever. That's a legacy of his.
We get to be part of this band, and we don't even all know each other in the alumni band, but that feeling of pride goes through, and it's just electrifying.
Next generation. With the legacy strong enough for everyone, many members of this band could finally accept that it was time to stop marching.
If you had asked me before, I would have said this is so sad. But now that we're at the end of the parade route, I'm thinking 30 years, I'm okay.
You go through transitions in life. You have your exciting moments, and you'll keep those with you always. And comes a point where you move on, but those feelings never leave you. We came back here It's like we never left.
Though most accepted this as the end, many were ready and willing in case the legend ever needed another chapter, ready to march again in body if necessary, and determined to keep the spirit alive regardless.
It's such a kick that it's just unbelievable how much fun it is, and I would definitely like to keep something like that going. That's why I still play.
I think it's the best thing we ever did was bring the alumni band back and get together. I don't think you'd keep me away. If you want to start another one, I'd be there, front row.
I can't imagine not coming back. Even in my old age, I can't imagine not coming back. And it's a feeling that I don't know that I've experienced in any other arena in my life.
People just don't want to let go of it. It's an anchor point for them in their lives. They go back and they think about what they've done throughout their life, and that's one of the things they remember. You know, it's that way for me.
It wasn't just the performance, it was the execution of the performance. We were privileged to be sort of part of the proud tradition.
I really wish that I would have done it earlier, and I wish that we could continue it.
From the standpoint of the Stampede, I'm sure it's kind of a sad thing. But the fact of the matter is they've got a longer history than anybody else, and I think they could be really proud of that.
We've said it many times, one person can make a difference, and Darrell Raines made a difference at Valley High School.
Yeah, I know I have a great sense of pride over what the groups have accomplished and the wonderful friendships that have been formed. I've been very proud of the alumni band that has come back and participated. It's just been a big thrill for me.
We went on a hell of a run. I'm thinking we're going to get together. We're not going to just end it. We might not be marching anymore. We're marching on in our spirits.
Here we go, just a marching down the street, we can do what any doesn't really do. Rolling tired and our feet to beat the beat.